Would you be surprised to know that there are Egyptian artifacts, Egyptian pyramids, even mummies that exist in the Grand Canyon that are older than the pyramids that exist in Giza, Egypt? So the structures you're seeing here are more weathered and worn down by far than temples that exist and pyramids that exist in other countries. Some of them are more noticeable as being a previous pyramid or temple, others are not. Here's a map showing the different locations of temples such as the Tower of Set, the Isis Temple, and so on. Now the reason I'm talking about this, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that I made a major discovery back maybe 2 months ago, where I found that the rock that you're looking at there, that is in the Rock of the Dome in Israel, you know, the big building with the gold dome on top of it, that building has one thing and one thing only in it, and it is a rock that looks, shaped, and even the topography, and I've done videos on this. I'll put a video at the end of this video, so it'll be the first one in the top left hand corner, so you can go back and see that video. But it looks, shaped, topography, and everything exactly like the western third of the United States. It just happens to match the states that you see in red that the Bureau of Land Management has control of in the United States. It's not private land anymore, it's public land. You know, public as in the public don't have the right to go on it. For some reason, they've transferred ownership of these parts of these states, and they intend on it being 100%. And they're very close. That map, the amount of red shows you how much of the state. I mean, look at Nevada. Almost every square inch of Nevada belongs to, or at least they believe it belongs to them, the Bureau of Land Management. Now, you'd be interested to find out who owns and controls the Bureau of Land Management. I would tell you. However, that's not exactly what this video is about. So here we've got the western third of the United States, shaped like the Rock of the Dome rock. Now here's that western third of the United States. You can kind of ignore the arrows for the moment and pay attention to what I'm going to show you here. I'm saying that these temples and these findings, which I'm going to show you a lot more imagery of that. I'm going to show you mummies. I'm going to show you some of the artifacts they found, and I'm going to show you some of the caves where the temples were at. It's incredible. But let me get the theory in your head first. This settlement is older than Egypt, than the Egyptian temples that are over there, the pyramids. What was going on in the Grand Canyon was prior, and I mean prior as in thousands of years prior, a complete eon prior, a complete cycle of time prior, a different set of 7,000 years prior. Following me? So, what happened? Well, if you take a look at this map, and as I'm zooming in and such here, doesn't it look like to you just an absolute disaster happened? It looks like that the western third of the United States was a catastrophe at some point or another. Absolute catastrophe. Somewhere's between, I mean, I've said a couple times recently that it looks like it has boiled. The ground has boiled, that every rock was turned upside down and it literally boiled. Few interesting things you can see in this image if you look at it closely. It's up in the upper left hand corner of the image. You can see what looks like a face. Actually, that red arrow is pointing at it. You can see it's kind of, the head's kind of leaning to the right. We got two eyes, circles around the eyes, a nose, mouth, the whole bit, hair, everything. There's one in the lower right down there too as well, where those arrows are pointing at. You can see the right eye. You can see this. This is kind of almost a side profile. But we're not here to find faces out of topography, because you can find faces in the clouds. But what we are here to do is to say, what exactly happened, and why didn't they tell us about it? You know, because they, of course, told us when we came up going through school that Columbus discovered America. He was, you know, the first person or human to find America, right? Well, we also know that that isn't the case. There were Indians here. There were Indians. Or were they remnant? Were the Indians remnant Egyptians that survived the catastrophe that killed everything that was out there pretty much? Were they the remnants that were left over? Were the Indians the leftover Egyptians from another eon, another period where almost all life was extinguished? And certainly in the western United States hemisphere. And likely a disaster of that level that it looks like took place in the western United States would have affected the rest of the United States, the entire continent, really. I mean, because this event takes place as you look at it all the way down into Mexico, all the way up into Canada, all the way to Alaska. The Ring of Fire must have been on fire. There must be a reason why they name it Ring of Fire other than earthquakes. Okay. So now we've got not Columbus finding this place, maybe not Indians being here first, even though they were. Maybe they weren't Indians, maybe they were Egyptians. And maybe they had huge major temples built in the Grand Canyon. Because when I look at places that I might want to live, places of beauty in the United States, and I've been to most states in the United States, and the western United States is certainly, in most ways, more beautiful than the eastern half of the United States. And I've been and lived in both places. Spent a lot of time in Idaho, Washington, California, Oregon, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Montana, South Dakota. Well, the list goes on, but you get the picture that I'm very familiar with that part of the country. And I'm starting to add up some things here that, as I've said before, everything that we've been told is an extreme set of lies to completely keep us fooled and keep the truth hidden from us. And the truth, in this case, is more mind-blowing than the lie is. You see, as always, the truth has been right in front of our face. We just didn't know it. We were too ignorant. The decision was made a long time ago, 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, and they stuck with it, that they were going to keep us ignorant. They were going to keep us dumbed down to the real facts, the real history of this world. And I don't know about you, but it pisses me the hell off that these few people think that they deserve the right to have all the information about our history, because he who controls the past or knows the past controls the present. Got quite a bit more stuff to show you here, guys, that is very interesting. Anybody ever wondered why in this eon, I'm referring to, well, eon technically is 1,000 years. There's a word for it, but I can't think of it. But let's call it the last the last season, the last 7,000 years. Why the black man, from every angle, it's been an attempt to destroy and eradicate them. I mean, you can say anything you want. And you can say, and this ain't me saying this, but someone could say, they're just stupid. Really? Or are they just uneducated? You could say, they're just barbaric. Really? Or are they just unrefined? You could say, they're like animals. Really? Or are they just undomesticated? You see, I look at things differently. And one of the ways I look at things is that what is the root causes of the behaviors of people in their lives today? People don't just come out of the womb saying, I'm going to be a gangbanger. People don't come out of the womb saying, I'm going to be a prostitute. People don't come out of the womb saying, I'm going to be a crackhead. It's the things that influence that baby, that child, that human being that are in our society. Because if you were to take that same baby, that same child, and put him in a different society, a different culture, you ever wonder why they call it cultures of the world? It's because we're all test tubes. You take that baby and switch him from one test tube to the other. Do you not believe that you can take any child and turn him into anything you want? So therefore, is it the black man's fault? It is not the black man's fault. But we're getting off on another story that's related, but not exactly where we're going. Let's take a look at a few things. Now, this was found in one of the caves in the Grand Canyon, in near mint condition. It was in a closed off area, sealed off area that survived. I would say what you're looking at is between 7 to 15,000, potentially even older, but it's older than the Egyptian pyramids. If the Egyptian pyramids are 7 to 15 or 7 to 14, then this would be 14 to 21,000 years old. It's pre-Egyptian Empire in Egypt. So they found this. It looks kind of like a dog kind of humanoid. Yet recently, this was installed, almost an exact replica, at the Denver International Airport, the One World International Airport. Man, that should just make your brain spin. I mean, we are getting so close to really starting to understand some things about our history. Because if we can understand what happened, we can understand what's going to happen. One thing that is happening is that I believe that we are at the end of another one of the 7,000-year cycles. That we are literally but days, months, likely not years. And if it is years, it's just the end of the 7-year tribulation. Tribulation, that is. And I'm not sure. I'm not positive about any of this. But this is what I do, and I choose to share it with you. And apparently, a lot of you like to follow me along this journey of trying to figure out my world, my history. Here's another photo found in the cave. in outstanding condition. This is untouched, supposedly. This is how they found everything, exactly the way it is. They haven't even cleaned it or anything. They just lit it. Isn't that incredible? In the Grand Canyon. Massively old. It's just amazing to me. Here are some rock carvings that were found there. As you can see, the detail. It's interesting to look at the faces. In some ways, they more resemble a person of what we would call African American heritage. But then again, detail out of one sculpture may or may not mean anything. Here's something else here. There are quite a number of mummies that were found as well, and they supposedly only opened one to verify that there was actually something in them, and there was a mummy in it. So we have mummies, we have carvings, we have pyramids, we have the story's looking pretty good that we have what we would call Egyptians in the Grand Canyon thousands of years ago. And here are the solid gold sculptures, antiquities that were found, looking more traditional in their style that we're used to seeing, looking like something between an Egyptian and Indian, maybe with a black person kind of blended in there, right? In the looks. Kind of looks like Obama, maybe. And here we have money, solid gold, with markings on it, hieroglyphs basically, as you can see if you look real closely. Solid gold, and it's time for me to answer the phone. Be right back. And then we've got more hieroglyphs here, some different images of them that are in the Grand Canyon, all telling a story. This one is actually the handprints. They put their hands on the rock, and then they use some kind of method, some kind of powder and mixing method to secure their handprints through time. Thousands of years old. A few more. This is actually sculptures right into the walls themselves. And the last one here, and then we're going to take a look at some of the caves and what the caves look like inside. Well, how would you describe this? It looks like you've got some giants with some little people in their laps. Looks like giant men with little women in their laps. And the one on the left has got the little woman up, and he's making out with her, as you can see there. Almost looks like his tongue's hanging out of his mouth. Wow. If that ain't a story and a half. I know some of you know exactly where this story is written at. Wow, this is an amazing hieroglyph. I didn't look at it this close when I first found it. Little women with sitting in giants' laps, and the giant making out with them. Wow, simply amazing. Now here's a large cave, and they have it lit, I guess, for, well, you gotta light it with something, but to make it look the way it looks, they've got it lit, and it's You've heard of the terracotta soldiers? Well, it's kind of like that. There's a bunch of, it's carved right out of the wall, and there are all these carved humans. I guess they are probably replicas of the beings at the time that lived there. They carved themselves into the wall so that they would be there for eternity. And so far it's lasted. They've done a pretty good job. And here you have a cave entrance going into one of the caves with a pointed top and a smooth surface front. You got to remember that these haven't been altered, updated, freshened up, or anything other than natural nature for in excess of 7,000 years for sure. Here's a close-up shot of that same cave entrance. And here's a little bit more impressive set of caves. And from what I've read, it sounds like that once you get inside, it's kind of like an open area in there, and you can see those are like windows that you can see out. That's quite the view. Quite the heck of a place to decide you want to dig a hole and make a house. I mean, that wouldn't be the easiest thing to do for sure. But then Egyptians aren't known for taking the easiest route. They're known for making things to last, right? Here's another cavern. The barrels you see and all that was put in this cavern back in the 1950s. It's food, storage food, stored in the cavern that lasted through the last, 7 to 14 to 21, whatever. A long time. The cavern ain't caved in, so they probably figured it's a pretty safe place. I probably agree with them. So what's the deal? Well, the deal is that, as you know, we've been lied to about everything. We're trying to figure it out. And one of the things that is becoming very clear and evident is that the United States was an empire prior to being the United States Empire, and an empire prior to being the nation of the American Indian. It was goes way back. This land did not sit barren prior to the American Indian or the occupation of this land by the white man, which I happen to be one of. It was occupied prior by at least what we would call the Egyptians, and there's no telling how far back before that and what has happened. Now, of course, old Obama here, he of course knows a lot of the truth. I'm sure that no one knows everything, but there's a reason why he's at this dam there in the Grand Canyon. Took the time out to go down there in that hole and walk around. There's a reason why they built this dam. And of course we've seen this dam depicted on the US dollar as being destroyed. We've seen this dam depicted by Madonna and other Illuminati puppets that are in the entertainment industry, depicted as being a birthing canal, the birthing of a new age, likely, is I'm assuming when this dam will no longer stand. And this canyon is once again filled with water. And I suspect that it's no coincidence that all this is the way it is, and that we're finding what we're finding, seeing what we're seeing, and that we now know that we are, through the preponderance of the evidence that I've been able to demonstrate to you guys, and the evidence that other people out there have been demonstrating, that we are let's call it at the end of one ending and the beginning of another, because I've always been a optimistic person. My glass has always been half full, so I don't like to look at everything as being a negative, that we should be afraid of what's coming. I don't feel that way at all. In fact, I feel liberated knowing that that these guys that rule this world, although they're going to attempt to go underground and survive through into the next season that this planet has, and become the rulers of that world. They think that they've built the systems using the underground tunnel systems that exist all across this nation. If you're unaware of it, don't believe in it, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You can't believe or not believe something out of existence, because it does exist. I've spoken to Department of Transportation personnel. I've spoken to truckers personally. And I've been contacted by other people and confirmed that these underground cities are there, fully stocked, paid for gratis of the United States taxpayer, and ready to receive the elites in the very near future. I've asked them, well, does it look like they're finished? Does it look like they're ready to receive people at any point, or is they're going to need a lot more time? The cities are finished. The underground cities are finished, with the exception of a few areas where they're still drilling a few connection points around the world, because this is not just a United States project. This is a worldwide project that's been going on. All the videos about the humming noise that people hear, you know, the vroom, 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 or noises in the night or in the day, and they think it's coming from under the ground or in the air. That's those 11-story tall drills drilling underground, grinding against granite. The map you're looking at there is a map of all the locations where these humming noises have been heard and reported on the internet. Obviously in the most highly populated areas and in the most highly populated parts of the developed countries that are controlled, mainly heavily controlled by the faction that controls and runs the United States of America, the corporation. Now, in closing, this is the entrance to one of the underground tunnel systems, and one of the last things that the elites of this world will see for the 100, 200, 500 year process of going underground and surviving what is likely to unfold on this planet in the coming years. And at what point they're going to actually go underground, I don't know. But I'd like to say to them, don't let the doorknob hit you on the ass on the way in. And to my friends and viewers for watching this video, I say thank you very much. Appreciate you continuing to use logic before authority. I'll continue the investigation into what is our reality. And now, lastly but not least, a look at some of the most beautiful places the Grand Canyon has to offer.